Feature Friday.
The freshest.
Well, since we are sort of traveling back in time and looking at some of Philippines' most impressive singers, but when they were young, I thought we'll have a look at Charice. Obviously now Jack Cyrus, but really interesting to see.
I believe that she was
9 years old.
Yeah, and she was also competing in the same show as
Katrina
Velarde when we saw that footage of her at 9 years old.
Yeah.
But I think this is a different show, though. I think this might be a different show, but they were competing around the same era.
Okay, well, you guys sent this through, and I thought it was really cool. So let's give it a watch.
All right.
Sa Laguna to sing Love Me More by Celine Dion.
Celine Dion.
Celine Dion. Bro, it happens live.
She's saying that's the Filipina version. I think.
Celine Dion.
Charice Pempengco.
Go, Charice.
You know, it's like 100p.
Yeah, this is old.
9 years old. Better audio on this one.
I'm sorry, but that girl had sass on stage.
It's really intriguing, right, to see the evolution of sort of like, because when you're sort of 9 years old, 10 years old, 11, there's not going to be that much change in terms of your personality, 9 to 10 to 11.
Mm-hmm.
The big changes is obviously 12 to 15. You sort of truly bloody change, you know what I mean? You essentially become a teenager. But it's so intriguing that at that age, Charice was sort of... she
was an entity on stage.
You know, Charice had sort of that idea that you had to sell the show and with some sort of sense of maturity, even if it's beyond your years.
Yeah,
you know?
It's actually quite interesting because a lot of kids that grow up in the industry understand the requirements of being on stage, but it seems like it's hard work to put it on.
Yep.
But in this particular performance right here, we're seeing somebody who's settled in the idea of performance. So it's something that's very natural in the progression of her performance up to this point.
I think on the idea of competitions, given how sort of ingrained they are in the Filipino culture.
True.
This isn't her first competition. This is
Absolutely not.
most likely, I don't know, the 27th. This is just the one that's been televised.
No, probably knowing the fact that she might have been recognized in one of those national competitions, therefore this opens other doors for national TV, blah blah blah, and then the rest of the Charice Pempengco career, it's been, witnessed by millions. But it's interesting to see the rise, right? The first televised, or the first few televised child performances, because those are really interesting. Those really depict the natural ability and to what extent it could have been nurtured.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
I agree.
But look at that!
Holy shit, dude.
She was so tiny as well. well, there's like this whole idea of seeing this tiny little human pack so much on stage.
I think it's certainly interesting as well to see, obviously the evolution it's essentially what the whole video is about, right? To see, because we've seen her in the past, we've seen her now in the present, and even though, there's been vocal changes and things like that kind of mentality of discipline and the mentality to singing has stayed the same, and the skill is undeniable regardless of whatever. So it's super intriguing to me that at 9 years old she was much more of a, what would you call it, of a performer rather than a vocalist. And as years sort of progressed, she became much more of the latter. She became much more of a vocalist, less of a performer, because it's actually impossible to reach the level of singing that Charice accomplished
with that
type of approach, that J-Lo approach to singing, where you're sort of being a star and you're sort of, making people, wow, look how charismatic she is. You have to stand still, dude. There's no fucking way.
Yeah, well, there's a lot. Well, you can see how the energy extortion and the compromise of being such a giving performance actually impacts her vocal quality and composition itself. But it's really interesting to see what might have been her mindset given competitions and not being a televised or an artist that would want to dive deeper into the vocal acrobacy of the discipline itself. So there's a lot. You can see both extents of in this particular chapter of her life, where you could have taken it in either or ways, right? So it's really interesting that she chose, or she might have been led into a harder path.
That would have happened, right? You should have sort of kept going in this manner.
In this natural predisposition of performance, yeah.
Definitely like being that.
Yeah.
Dude, that mic is half of her.
Literally, but look at her, come on. She knew what she was doing. Yes. Girl. Yeah.
The fatigue starts to kick in and damn!
I'm telling you! Great. Come on. What an execution.
Oh, Jesus.
Good girl, come on!
I'm running out of breath for her, bro.
Woo!
Oh, shit.
Yes, Charice! Oh my god, come on!
Here's the other thing as well that's obviously a highlight. And for those they're going to ask, I am feeling better. I'm about 85% there, mate.
Yes.
But it's also in competitions what you do seem to see a lot more. I mean, that's redundant. That's the sentence, but you do know what I mean. What you see in these sort of competitions, it's essentially more of a vocal showcase, right? You sort of go there, the belts, Celine Dion, blah, blah, blah. Who can create the most wow out of their vocal wow, out of the power that they possess or the skills that they possess out of the crowd.
Yes.
And that's usually who goes through.
Yeah.
Very rarely, actually, do you notice in the Filipino music industry someone performing live that, because of the vocal pedigree, you can't combine both. That's not real. That shit doesn't exist. That's why when you look at other sort of like the more pop sort of scene, like the P-pop scene, you see the SB19 lads, you see the Beanie Girls. That's quite impressive what they're doing. But they do have they have other members to lay work on, and they have foundational work moments in which you shine, moments in which you relax, choreography moments, breakdowns, and then also vocal songs with which you don't have to do backflips on.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it as a soloist, it's basically impossible to maintain that sort of vocal pedigree and vocal quality, and also be the person that's interacting with everyone and giving you fucking sass, and doing the splits, or waiting for an entry and smacking down your foot, and you think that's not going to have an impact. So
It does.
You don't really have that yet still in the Philippines, which is really interesting.
As a soloist, no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like maybe the closest thing you had, it's from
Probably
the beginning,
Sarah
Sarah Geronimo.
Yeah.
And and that's why I think they sort of, everyone thinks of her as like a pop star, but she's essentially, she's like a great vocalist as well. She's also a balladeer. She's so it's really
Yeah, but you don't see her most talked about performances with the biggest dance breaks or anything like that, or the most memorables being the most vocally demanding songs either.
Yeah,
You
most memorable is what, Tala? What is that? The thing?
Yeah.
With
the star song. Yeah.
I forget the name of that
Tala,
song.
I think it is, yeah.
So it's like, that's the most memorable thing, well, essentially.
Performance-wise, right? Yeah.
And, that isn't the most vocally demanding song.
That's right.
By his skill set, but it's the choreography, it's the show.
performance,
She's the
yeah.
pop star. But everyone else, I mean, Morissette probably a good example because she's sort of the more modernistic approach to things. And maybe I haven't seen her recently live apart from the online concerts.
That's right.
But different dynamic. There she was quite active. I mean, essentially, she was very active. Jada is also a good example. So the modernistics of she's introducing dance to the thing.
Breaks and stuff.
And if you look at the online concert, it was a great concert. But the question is, like, you do a normal concert. It's like, what the fuck? How long can this woman keep this up for?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So
it's quite a demanding set of necessities to cover all, and then you can obviously see it even in children, right? Because it's like a marathon. The songs are so long, they're so demanding. You're trying to showcase your vocal ability to your best extent, as well as leave an impact, leave a mark on the audience, and it's kind of like it's kind of like juggling way too many things at the same time. But it's fascinating. I mean, what a show, right? It's
fantastic.
If anyone can do it,
it's
like, whoa, you're God.
Let us know what you thought about it, and most importantly, perhaps if you were there live, or if you have any sort of
or you saw it on TV when it happened.
Yeah, any performances you'd like to see, everybody's welcome. So goodbye.
Yeah.